What's going on, everyone? It's Ben from YGO from Zero, back with another Retro Yu-Gi-Oh video. In this video, I'm going to be covering yet another deck from Amsterdam Format, which is the name that I'm giving to the Ancient Sanctuary Chaos format. Now, last video, I showed off a pretty insane combo deck with Dark Magician of Chaos and Monster Gate that I think is honestly probably the best deck in the format. Based on my testing here. But, there were some additions to other decks that Ancient Sanctuary introduced, and so let's just focus on what the regular Chaos deck might look like with the new cards from Ancient Sanctuary. Now, this list in front of you is probably not what the deck would actually solidify as, but it is a direction that you can take it that uses some of the new cards from Ancient Sanctuary and some of the tins. So, basically, this deck is trying to play a bit of a slower, control-ier game, using Knight Assailant and Raigeki Break as free discard fodder, essentially, because Knight Assailant is a flip monster that says, its flip effect is target one monster your opponent controls, destroy that target. That can come up, but the main reason we're playing it is because if it's sent from the hand to the graveyard, you get to target one flip monster in your graveyard except for this card, and add that target to your hand. And this can be very good, as people who played GOAT format know. If you pitch two Knight Assailants off something like Graceful Charity, you can add back both to hand because they each target each other. And you can also target other flip monsters like Magician of Faith and Gravekeeper's Spy. So, that's the main difference to this deck. We also have a copy of Blade Knight in here, as it's a good light target that came out in one of the tins. So I figured I'd see how this card does as well. But besides that, the deck is very, very similar to how it looked in Chaos format. So I'm not really going to spend too much time on this deck breakdown. For the monsters, we got BLS and CD as our Chaos monsters, Blade Knight, Break of the Magical Warrior, double DD Warrior Lady, triple Gravekeeper's Spy, triple Kaiku the Ghost Destroyer, one Magician of Faith, triple Knight Assailant, a Sangan, a Sinister Serpent, a Tribe Infecting Virus, and a Witch of the Black Forest. For these spells, we got Chain of Heart Confiscation, Dark Hole, Graceful Charity, and Mirage of Nightmare with 3 MST to go with it, and Monster Reborn, Painful Choice, Pot of Greed, Raigeki, Snatch Teal, Forceful Sentry. For the traps, we've got Imperial Order, which is one of the best cards in the format. We've got Mirror Force, Ring of Destruction, and triple Raigeki Break. And then the side deck, I didn't really put too much effort in the side deck. We do have some things like, Heavy Storm for if we're up against a more back row heavy deck, Double Nobleman of Crossout in case we're up against a more flip-focused deck. Healing of Duo if we know we're going first. Card Destruction for some decks like we might want to get more aggressive with, especially if we're facing the Demock Gate decks. Then having Card Destruction can enable us to potentially revive one of their Democks from grave, which can be pretty good. We got triple Royal Decree here for the back row focus decks again. We've got double Sacrifice to Armor and triple Turn Tribute for more aggressive decks. And we've also got a Shining Angel in here just as an experimental light target in case I'm not liking the Blade Knight. For the Fusion deck, it's pretty much the standard Scientist toolbox, but we're not playing Scientist, so this will likely never come up. But if you want to see, what these cards actually are, then you can check out many of my other videos that actually feature Scientist in them. But it's basically just a standard toolbox suite of cards. But these will likely never come up. But that's going to do it for the deck breakdown. So, without further ado, let's just dive into the games and actually see how this version of the deck actually plays out. Okay, we got a game against Rago Drago, a frequent guest on the channel. Always a pleasure to have them on. If you want to find games in any of the formats that I featured on the channel, then definitely check out the Discord server linked in the description down below. It's a great place to find games in this format and any of the others that I've featured. But we are going to be going second. Unfortunately, we lost the rock, paper, scissors. Our opponent's going to start with a Forceful Sentry, which is very good for them. They're going to send back this Breaker the Magical Warrior, which means, to me, that they probably have something like, Imperial Order, or just some, trap that they don't want popped by Breaker. So that's good to keep in mind for, our MST. So we don't want to, blind snipe their back row in case it is, the Imperial Order. But they're going to send that Breaker there. They're going to go for a Graceful Charity, drawing 3, pitching a Trunade and a Reasoning. I'm not really sure how I feel about pitching Reasoning here, as if they are on a sort of Demock Gate deck, you kind of want Reasoning, as many copies of Reasoning as you can. But, I mean, we can check their hand to see what they've got. I feel like Reasoning is probably better to keep here than MST, maybe, because you know that I don't have Imperial Order. But I guess if I draw Imperial Order, then that's going to be an issue, but yeah, I think probably MST was the better pitch there. They're going to go for Reasoning. We call 8. And they do keep going through a BLS because, BLS cannot be normal summoned or set, so you can't actually bring it out off of Reasoning. So they hit the Demock there. And if they had the other Reasoning in hand, they could have kept going. But unfortunately, they do not. so they're going to have to just set one pass back to us. We are going to draw into a Gravekeeper Spy. Now, we could potentially set that to set up a play later on, but instead we're just going to bring out the Sangan here and attack in for 1,000. If this gets cleared, then we get a search, and also we don't necessarily want to go for Kaiku to banish what's in their grave because we do know about Dim Fuse. Now, we could potentially go for Kaiku, banish the Blackluster Soldier alone, and just leave the Demok in grave to play around Dimension Fusion. I think that maybe would have been the better play in hindsight, especially if I have the read that the set is IO because they took Breaker. But I go for this instead. I don't think this is a terrible play. It's just a bit too passive, I think. And against these more aggressive Monster Gate decks, you kind of do have to get aggressive. So, I think this is, in hindsight, the wrong play, but let's hope it doesn't actually affect us too much. Our opponent is going to go for an upstart, so we do gain 1,000 off that. They get a draw. They're going to go for Raigeki, so we get a search off the Sangan, and we're going to search out a Sinister Serpent because we have the read that they might have, like, a Chaos Emerald Dragon or something like that if they are going for the Raigeki here. I think in hindsight, I could have sent the Night Assailant instead to get back Magician of Faith or a Spy. That might have been a better option. But I think Serpent is still fine because Serpent is a recurable body that just keeps coming back. Like, if they've got another way to deal with Faith or Spy that we set after getting it back off Night Assailant, then, you know, Serpent would be the correct choice there. But they've already used up a Raigeki. So I think, honestly, the Night Assailant would have been a bit better here. But our opponent is going to indeed banish a Light in the Dark from grave, bring out a Chaos Emperor Dragon, and attack in for 3,000. So I'll go through. We draw another Kaiku, a bit too late here. We're going to set a Spy, pass back to our opponent. And they're going to think about this, and they're going to set one, go for Monster Gate on this Fiber Dread that they set. And they managed to hit a Demok, so that will be the end of the game. They can just add back Raigeki here, and that will be all she wrote. But I think we could have potentially had a better chance at this if I had gone for the Kaiku play. That being said, I think we still would have been in a really tough spot because eventually they would have gotten Gate into Jar, into Demok, right? That's just the layout of the top of their deck, no matter what it is. And we wouldn't have been able to kill them in time to actually make that matter. So I think we probably were dead here either way. But, you know, it's good to keep in mind what we can do differently and what would have been a little bit better for us there. So, but that was a really cool showing for the Monster Gate deck. For the siding process, since we are going first, we bring in a Delinquent Duo. We actually take out the Serpent because I figure, you know, Serpent's in there for CD. We can just use Night Assailant instead. And also Card Destruction can get, or not Card Destruction, Duo can get more cards out of their hand. So that's good to keep in mind as well. And it's better going first, I think. We open a crazy hand here. This is really good. We go for Pot of Greed, draw 2. Now we're going to go for Forceful to inform our graceful discards here. So there's an argument to keep Forceful in hand because, you know, you might want it to pitch off Charity. But, you know, there's many cards that we could pitch off Charity instead. We also have a lot of normal summons here, so we probably want to go for that instead. But we're going to go for Forceful now. So we get to see their hand. And we see that they've got Demok, Premat, Monster Gate, Change of Heart, and Dimension Fusion. Now, that's a pretty threatening hand, but I think the scariest card there is actually the Monster Gate. And the reason for this is if they get any monster, Monster Gate just turns on their entire deck, which we do not want. Change of Heart is also annoying because they can take one of our monsters, which is pretty strong, but they only get it for a turn. And realistically, we only really care if they take one of our monsters for Monster Gate. So, I feel like Monster Gate is the right choice here to send back. Because that card is turned on their entire deck if they can actually get it online. We're going to go for Graceful Charity, draw 3. We're going to pitch a Night Assailant and a Spy, use Night Assailant to get back the Spy there. And then we actually make a bit of a misplay here. We set the Spy to sort of get more follow-up on the following turn. But what I should have done is set DD Warrior Lady instead. Because if you'll notice, my graveyard only has a dark in it, and DD Warrior Lady is a light. And having DD Warrior Lady in grave in case they change of heart and then Monster Gate it is much better than if we get a Spy in grave. We do have ways to get DD Warrior Lady in grave, bringing out like Tried Infecting Virus, pitching it to pop something. That is one way to do it. But I think that, you know, just setting the DD Warrior Lady would have been a bit more of a heads-up play on my part. There is also the argument that, like, I should keep the DD Warrior Lady in hand, because if they bring out a Demok and banish the DD Warrior Lady with its effect, then that would be pretty bad for us. But in that scenario, we're getting them to banish the Demok, so it's not the worst thing. They do have Dimension Fusion, but then we can bring out our DD Warrior Lady again, so... yeah, I don't know. I think that DD Warrior Lady was probably the better choice in most scenarios because it's kind of tough for them to bring out a Demok here, given their hand. They're going to go for Change of Heart on our set there, and they're going to go for Monster Gate indeed. So that will indeed hit a Jinzo, which is pretty good. Jinzo can shut down any traps if we have them, but we do not. So they're going to attack in for 2400. Pass back to us. We draw a Blade Knight, which is another light. And now we're in a bit of an awkward spot. So I'm pretty sure with Trident Infecting Virus, you have to declare a type of monster that's actually on the field in order to use its effect. Otherwise, we could just bring out Trident Infecting Virus, pitch like DD Warley or Blade Knight, call like Warrior, and be fine, and get a Light and Dark Engrave, go for BLS, and then Change of Heart their Jinzo. It's not quite game, but it's like very, very close. But yeah, given that we have to call a monster on field, this makes it a little bit more awkward for us. So we're going to go for the Tribe, pitching the DD Warley to pop the Jinzo there. And then we're going to banish a Light and a Dark, bring out a BLS, and attack in for 4,600. So this is still over half their life points, but unfortunately their Dimension Fusion is still online. That would have been the advantage to going for the Change of Heart play on the Jinzo there, would be to shut off their Dimension Fusion. We also could have gone Trident Infecting Virus, pitch a DD Warley, pop the Tribe itself, to then get a double attack over the Jinzo. Is also a bit more resilient in case they've got like Change of Heart, or not Change of Heart, in case they've got like Snatch Steal. They like snatch our Tribe, pop the BLS. But it's probably better for them just to snatch the BLS if they've got Snatch. So I don't really think it matters that much, but it is good to keep in mind these different lines that you can do. And we are going, or our opponent's going to fire a premature burial to bring back the Jinzo, which we did know about. So, this is still within the realm of possibility. And they do have another Monster Gate there. So Monster Gate's going to hit a Blowback Dragon. Blowback Dragon could potentially be a bit tough for us. But we do have Change of Heart for the Blowback Dragon. So it's not the worst thing in the world in case they pop our whole board. And they will indeed pop, or do they pop the BLS? They do indeed pop the BLS. Yep. The third flip will do it. And they're going to attack into this Tribe here, dealing 700 to us. And having just a big monster on field, they're going to set one, pass back to us. We do have this Change of Hearts, so we'll take control of it, and they're just going to mid-defeat, so that means that their back row is probably nothing there. I think it had to be the Dim Fuse, actually, given what we knew of their hand. So, yeah, we could have just Change of Heart, summoned out a monster, attacked in for game. So that's going to be game 2 there, and now that we're going second, I actually bring out the duo and bring in a Card Destruction, I believe, because Card Destruction is good in case they brick. We have the read that they're on DMOC in hand, and then we can Card Destruction that away, reborn it potentially. So I like Card Destruction as a sort of going second tool against the DMOC Gate deck. But we'll have to see what actually happens here. So we draw Card Destruction and Reborn. That's about the best we could get there. And they're going to set 2, pass back to us. Now, I'm a little bit worried about Imperial Order, but I am going to bait that out with Pot of Greed, because I have the read that they're on DMOC in hand, right? Because they bricked this turn, and oftentimes your bricks are made up with DMOCs in hand. So I actually think it's most valuable to bait the IO with Pot of Greed. If the IO does get flipped, we can bring up Breaker, pop the IO, go for Card Destruction and Reborn here to bring back the DMOC, get back the Pot of Greed, and go off there. So I am just going to bait it with the pot, which sounds really weird because you'd think that I'd want to bait it with a lesser impact card like Card Destruction, but I think that this is the correct way to actually pull off what I want to do. So we think about exactly what to do, because that other set could be something to pop our Breaker, but I'm just going to go for it. I think this is the best thing to do. Anyways, Breaker's still trading 1 for 1, and if it does actually manage to pop the IO, then we've got a really, really good play set up. So our opponent's going to go for Ring on the Breaker, so that's going to deal us 1,600 each. And unfortunately, we won't be able to clear that IO yet. And our opponent is going to keep it up, so it seems like they still don't have their combo online. They're going to bring out a Sacred Crane and attack indirectly for 1,600. Pass back to us. Now, I'm a little bit worried about that Crane, because I don't want them to like draw into Monster Gate and, get off the races there. So what I'm actually going to do, this does leave me a little bit open, but I think it is correct to just bring out Blade Knight, crash into the Sacred Crane, because we just want to keep them off of monsters on field. If they've got Premature Burial or Monster Reborn, then they can use it to get back the Crane, draw a card, and that's unfortunate for us. But if they have those cards anyways, they're probably in a good spot. So I feel like this is ultimately the best thing to do here, because we want to shut off the gates. Like, gates are one of the most powerful cards in their deck, and we just want to prevent them from using them as much as possible. We draw an MST, which isn't really that good here. We're just going to bring out the Sangan, start attacking in with that. Sangan beats. We'll set this MST in case they let the IO go, and then activate like a pre-mat. And they're going to keep the IO up, though, so we feel very good about this. We draw Gravekeeper's Spy. Now, we could set the Spy and play it a little bit more passively, going for a game shot next turn, but I want to shut them off of Dimension Fusion in case they have that. So I'm just going to attack in for 2,200. I think this is still a pretty good option. If they bring out a monster to attack over our board, then I still think this is ultimately fine. And, given the read that they might have a gate in hand that's shut off by them not having monsters on field, I think that we're relatively safe in doing this because if they've got a gate anyways, then they're probably winning. So, or gate access, that is, then they're probably winning. But that's going to be the end of the game. It looks like they did have DMOC, gate, dark hole, true nade, BLS, and blowback. So I'm very happy that, we crashed into the crane because these gates would have gone really well for them. And we did not have anything to do with that. Interestingly enough, they actually didn't have DMOC in the opener, it looks like. So actually our initial play of going for breaker on the IO might have actually been incorrect there. But I do think that it made sense to go for it as a read. And just having like reborn and card destruction is, I still think, a pretty decent option against these sort of Monster Gate DMOC decks. But this wasn't the only game that I played against Ragged Drag. We actually got a couple more games as well. So let's dive into those and see how they do. Okay, we got another game against Rago Drago. We're still playing the same decks. We are on this sort of chaos field there on the gate deck. And this is not the best hand to draw, honestly. You don't want a hand of all monsters. They're going to go for a forceful, send back this tribe, shuffle that back in. Tribe is probably the right pick there because Tribe can deal with a lot of what they might be doing. They're going to go for reasoning. We call 8. It's always correct to call 8, in my opinion, because there are 3 DMOCs, 3 cranes. So unlike in GOAT format, where you have to think, well, 4 is the more likely outcome here, 8 is about as likely an outcome as anything else in most gate decks. So you do just want to call 8. But unfortunately, they hit a blowback dragon, so that will get on field, and they're just going to pass back to us. Tribe would have been able to deal with that, but as is, we are in a bit of a tough spot. We're going to go for painful choice here. And I'm thinking about what to send. I send triple Raigeki Break, a Forceful, and a Magician of Faith. I think, honestly, I could have sent, like, maybe even Raigeki Dark Hole here just to clear the blowback, as it's that good of a card for them because we don't have any way to deal with it. It can pop our flips, and so we don't necessarily want to do that. So I think that this was a misplay. I think I shouldn't have sent the Forceful and the Faith. But I'm figuring, like, okay, if they give us Break, then we pitch Assailant, we get back Faith. If they give us Faith, then we potentially get a powerful spell from Grave. But, all we've got right now is Painful and Forceful, so it's not really the best there. And if they give us Forceful, then we can potentially cut off some combo plays. So I think this was a misplay, though. They do give us the Faith. And this misplay might cost us the game here. We'll have to see. We set a Night Assailant pass back to them because if they can't pop the Night Assailant with the blowback, at least Night Assailant can pop the blowback there. But they do go for a Comfy, so that's going to be unfortunate. They do know about the Night Assailant set because they were able to Forceful Sentry us the previous turn. They're going to go for the blowback on the set there. And they hit heads, and they hit heads, so that will indeed pop the United Assailant. They're going to attack in for 2,300, pass back to us, and we draw a ring, so that we'll be able to deal with the blowback there. We set a spy, set the ring, pass back to them, and then in standby phase, both to play around the blowback effect and also to play around Monster Gate, we're going to go for ring there to pop the blowback dragon. This gets a little bit punished if they got like Monster Reborn or Premature Burial, but if they don't have those 2 cards exactly, I'm feeling pretty good about this. They've got Premature Burial though, so that will indeed bring back the blowback there, and blowback will be able to try and pop our set. So they hit tails. Okay. We're feeling okay about that. They hit heads. Okay, comes down to this last flip. And what are they going to hit? They're going to hit tails. Okay, so we managed to keep the spy. These sort of results actually do match up with the probability on Blowback Dragon, because while it is kind of weird that you're flipping a coin 3 times and you're only popping if it's at least 2 of the results being heads, it does actually come out to like a 50% probability of that happening. So the math is checking out so far. They're going to go for Change of Heart, though, and that will just be the end of the game. So that's 3,500 points of damage total. So, yeah, we're just going to pass back to them, or not pass back to them. We're just going to admit defeat. And, yeah, I mean, if they had gotten the blowback correct, they actually might have, we would have maybe survived a turn, but they might have had a monster in hand to, continue further with that. But we're going to be going first this time. We brought in the duo over the serpent, just like last time. Let's see if we draw that. We do indeed draw the duo, so we're going to go for that. We draw ring as well, so we go for the duo here and try and rip apart their hand a little bit. We're going to hit a Comfy and a True Nade, so not the worst things to hit. We're going to set this Faith, set a ring, pass back to them. Now, we do get punished if they've got Change of Heart into Faith. But I figured, like, if they've got Change of Heart, we probably lose anyways. And I want to get aggressive with this duo to sort of just keep depriving them of cards in hand, as combo decks really do want their hand to stay intact. So I figured that duo is a good option. We got ring to pop if they bring out a monster to go for, like, Monster Gate. So I feel like we're ultimately pretty good here. They're going to go for Upstart, draw a card. And now they're going to go for Pot of Greed, draw 2 more. They're going to go for Charity as well. Draw 3, discard 2. So we're probably dead here either way. They're going to pitch double Crane here. They're going to go for Premat on a Crane, and that will be able to get them a draw. And when they bring that out on field, we're actually going to go for Ring on the Crane. Ring will still, or Crane will still get the draw here, but we want to deprive them of Monster Gate fodder. So I feel like it's right just to do it there. We could have saved it for later, but like we don't want them to hit a DMOC. If they hit DMOC off of like gate or something like that, then it's just game over. So I feel like this is still the best thing to do. They go for reasoning here. We call 8, and they hit a 3, so they hit Fiber Jar, which is kind of funny. And then they're going to go for Change of Heart on our set, so we do get a bit punished for the Faith. Let's see what they've got in hand. They do have DMOC anyways, so no matter what we said here, they would have been able to get back a spell and then likely win the game from that position. They wouldn't have a Light and Dark Engrave yet, but they could have gone for Graceful, or they could have gone for Premat even to bring back another Crane, or Reborn actually. Yeah, there's a lot of things they could have done here. The Faith just sort of like cements them winning, but I think they still would have won here either way. Because just tributing over both for the DMOC is still very good, and we don't really have a way to deal with that. So they're going to go for Charity here. Draw 3, pitch. Yeah, they had the Light and Dark set up off that Charity. So this would have been the end of the game no matter what if they had just tributed over whatever we had out for a DMOC, then brought out the Chaos Ember Dragon. So yep, that is going to be the end of the game. So I think setting the Faith was still the correct choice because, again, if they had changed, they'd probably win that game either way. But if they didn't have that, then we could have gotten really aggressive on ripping apart their hand. So unfortunately, they go for DMOC here. They also get back Reborn off that, but they didn't really need to. That was just the end of the game. 10 waits to Sunday, and that is unfortunately how some games go in this format. It's part of why I think that these gate decks are honestly the best decks in the format, because they just get so aggressive. You can play a bit more of a control your chaos style deck, but if you do, you just get blown out because your opponent has the time to actually do things. Sure, these gate decks are a bit weaker to things like Imperial Order, which is unfortunate, but a lot of decks are weak to Imperial Order in this format. It's just a very, very powerful card. And also, if you build the gate deck in certain ways, there are potential ways around that with things like Raigeki Break, or other things like that. I think Fiber Jar is in here also as an out to order, but I'm not sure how much I like Fiber Jar because you can potentially hit it off of like Reasoning and Monster Gate. And my sort of philosophy with building this deck is like, whenever you Monster Gate, you want that to hit something good. Like, I sort of view Monster Gate as just like, it should be a win con for the deck. If you pull it off, you're just winning the game. So I'm not really sure how I feel about Fiber Jar, but it is interesting to see it being experimented with here. And it's potentially an option that people can play in this deck. But this wasn't the only game that we played with Ryo Drago. We actually got one more, the tiebreaker match. So let's dive into that now. Okay, we got our last game against Ryo Drago here. We will need to get to go first, which is pretty nice. And we are going to, let's see what we open. We draw Raigeki Break, MST, Kaiku, Graceful, and Sangan. Those are pretty good openers, honestly. We're going to go for the Graceful here, draw 3, pitch 2. And we got Comfy as well. So we can pitch this Night Assailant. Unfortunately, we don't have another flip monster to get back with that, but we're setting up the Night Assailant in grave for if we pitch another Night Assailant later. So that's good. We're also going to pitch this Kaiku because we got another Kaiku in hand. We're going to go for the Comfy here just to see what they're working with. And we see that they've got Scapegoat, Gate, Force Century, Reasoning, and Trunade. I think what we want to send there is the Gate, because again, Gate turns on their entire deck. They've got 2 ways to access Gate, through Scapegoat or Reasoning. So we just want to get that out of their hand there. So we are going to set this Sangan, set Raigeki Break, and set MST to play around a Forceful. Unfortunately, they probably will Forceful back the Chaos Ember Dragon, but nothing we can really do about that. And they are going to indeed go for Trunade. Yep, we're kind of trying to bait out the Trunade as well, because they would have gone for that either way. But it doesn't really matter there. They're going to go for a Forceful Sentry here, and they're going to send back the CD. So that is the correct choice in my opinion. They're going to go for Reasoning. We call 8, because again, 8 is the correct choice off Reasoning. It's just as likely as 4 in these decks in this format. They're going to hit a Crane though, so that will get to draw them a card. And they got Gate off the top, so yeah, that's going to be rough. They can get into a DMOC now, and it's just getting worse for us. They're going to go for Charity there. Yeah, I think Charity is probably correct. You could also have gotten back the Gate to sort of just try and extend further, or just gotten back Reasoning as well to do the same thing. They're going to go for Graceful, pitch a Trunade, and a Fiber Jar there. And they are going to just go to battle, attack over our Sangan, and that does get banished, so it's quite unfortunate there. There is an argument to have set the Kaiku or just committed the Kaiku to field instead of the Sangan, just to play around the Dark Magician of Chaos attacking over it, because we do have a way to clear through Raigeki Break. But I think it's ultimately fine to do this, and unfortunately, we did get a little bit punished for it. But I think any aggressive deck or any aggressive play that the Gate deck is doing is going to probably involve Demok hitting over our Sangan if we've got it on field. So I think this is ultimately still fine. We're going to bring out this Kaiku here. We're just going to set 2, pass back to them. These cards can deal with their Magician of Chaos, so that's why we're doing that. We need to keep a card in hand for our Raigeki Break in case we want to use that. They are going to just tribute over the Demok for a blowback dragon, and they're going to prio on the Kaiku there. We are okay with this because, you know, I mean, we could just ring a Raigeki Break it right away, but we figure the reason they're doing this is because they've got Dim Fusion, so I feel like it's a bit awkward to just immediately pop the blowback when they've got other things coming. So that's why I don't immediately do this. But luckily, we do get to keep the Kaiku. They're going to attack in with the blowback, and we've got Ring for the blowback to pop that. So we'll each take 2,300. And then they're going to go for Premat on the blowback. And I feel like I mean, there are 2 options here. I could just wait. And, you know, I've got MST to deal with the Premat next turn anyways. But the issue is that then they pop the Kaiku, and that's pretty bad for us. Alternatively, I could just Raigeki Break it now and go for that. So I decided to Raigeki Break and just pop the Premat there because I don't want them potentially popping the Raigeki Break or popping the Kaiku. So yeah, I just sort of deprive them of as many choices as possible. But there definitely was an argument just to waiting a turn because the MST does deal with the blowback. But yeah, I decided to go for this, and I think it's ultimately fine. We do get aggressive here, going for 3,600, but they do have the Scapegoat. That's another reason why it was a little bit awkward, because I was initially planning on Raigeki breaking the Scapegoat when they had actually summoned that turn, so they wouldn't have been able to activate it. But I think it was more important to clear the blowback. But they go for Dimension Fusion here, so they will be able to get back their Demok, and that probably will be the end of the game, as they can get back any spell from their grave, and their graveyard is pretty packed. So they're going to get back this Graceful Charity. I think, honestly, Gate might have been the better option, because you just gate away a token, and then you get either, like, Jinzo or Demok, and either of those are pretty good for you. But, I mean, Graceful Charity is also very good, so it doesn't really matter too much. They're going to go pitch a Crane and a Call. They're going to go for a Change of Heart on our Kaiku and Reborn back a Crane to draw another card here. They're going to crash our Kaiku into each other, and then they're going to hit over the Sangan with the Demok, attack in directly for 16, and we're in a very, very bad spot. They're going to pass back to us. We draw Breakers so that can at least clear the Crane, but it's likely over for us. There's not much we can do here. We attack over for 3 because if we don't do that, we're dead. And they're just going to go for Reasoning. We call 8 because, again, it's the most likely option. Or at this point in the game, yeah, there are 2 Demoks left in deck that we don't know about, whereas there's like 1 level 6 and 1 level 4 left. So, yeah, I think that 8 was the most likely option there. Unfortunately, they do hit a Jinzo instead, and so this will be lethal damage here. So, that's going to be the end of game 1. A little bit more back and forth than some of the other games I've shown off here. But again, the Gate deck, you know, you give it an inch, it takes a mile. And it is just so explosive and so aggressive if you don't have a way to stop it. And unfortunately, we have not been drawing ways to stop it there. So we are going first, so we bring in the Duo over the Serpent again. We go for Graceful here, pitch an MST and a Kaiku there. We go for a Forceful, see what they're working with. And we see that they've got Demok, Snatch Steal, MST, Monster Gate, and Card Destruction. So we actually take the Card Destruction, and the reason for this is that we can pretty much play around everything else in their hand. If they draw a monster and go for Monster Gate, that's very, very unfortunate for us, and we get really hurt by that. But if we don't do that, then they Card Destruction away our BLS, which is really annoying. We kind of want to keep BLS in rotation here. And we can play around Snatch Steal by setting the Spy. We got Raigeki Break to deal with these Snatch Steal as well, so I feel like we like our hand well enough to just send back the Card Destruction here. So we do that. We also don't want to let them get a Demok Engrave for like Reborn shenanigans. So yeah, we just send that back, and we will set this Gravekeeper Spy pass back to them. We don't want to get any of our back row like Blind Snipe by MST, so I feel fine about this. We could have also set a Raigeki Break and a Mirror Force, gone for it that way, and then they just have to pick one to MST. But I feel like this is ultimately fine. We know their hand. We know they don't really have much to deal with a Spy, and we can then just set the Mirror Force and Raigeki Break later. But there is an argument to setting them on field here. They're going to go for Graceful here, draw 3, pitch an MST and an MST, so that's pretty good. now we can set our back row without much fear next turn. They've got Darkhold to clear the Spy. And now they're going to, oh, they got the card destruction off the Graceful anyways. Oh, yeah, that's rough for us. We do draw 4 good ones. We've got Reborn for their Demox. That's very nice. But they're just going to pass back to us. We draw an MST as well, which is pretty good. We are just going to think about exactly what to do here. We're going to go for Breaker, break their back row. And it's a Monster Gate, so I'm glad to get that out of the way. And now we have to think about exactly how we want to do this. We will indeed Reborn back the Democ. That's something we're always doing there. And yeah, they just admit defeat. They don't have anything to really stop that. And we can get back another spell from Grave. And we got some pretty good ones in there. So that will be the end of game 2. And again, these games go pretty quick. But that is something you have to keep in mind with the Gate deck, is that your opponent can take advantage of your Democs if they do have the Reborns for them. So you have to always be a little bit careful of that. But we're going to go into game 3. Our opponent will be going first here. So they've got the advantage. And let's see what they do with it. Okay, this is actually not the best opening, but it is what it is. We got Raigeki Break, so that can be disruption on their turn at least. They go for Reason. We call 8. Again, I think this is the correct choice, but they do get a 4, so this means that they'll be able to draw a card off that. They've got the Gate for the Crate, and they get out an 8, so that's going to be pretty good for them. They can get back the Gate here, as Gate does go to the graveyard before Democ actually activates its effect. And they're going to go for Reasoning here, and they're going to hit another 4. We called 8 because, again, 8 is the most likely thing there, because we see a 4 in Grave, and 8 used up. So it's 2 and 2 there. So 8, 4, and 6 are likely equally likely, in case they're just playing the Jinzo and the Blowback. But they go for Gate again, and they hit another Democ. So what are the odds of that sequence of events there? They get back a Comfy there. They go for Comfy to rip apart her hand a bit. They send a DD Warrior Lady there. And it's not quite the end of the game, but it is a bit of a tough spot to be in. We draw Raigeki Break, so that can at least do something. We're going to set this Night Assailant, set the Raigeki Break, pass back to them. Night Assailant can pop one of their Democs. Raigeki Break can deal with the other. So there's that. They go for the MST. We're just going to, pitch a Kaiku, pop a Democ. If they've got Dimension Fusion, they've got Dimension Fusion either way, and we're probably losing no matter what. But we just have to go for this. They go for Premat on a Crane to get another draw there to extend a little bit further. They're going to go for a Pot of Greed, draw 2, and they're going to go for a Monster Gate, tributing off that Crane and hitting a another Democ. Okay, yeah. So now they get back. Let's see. They sent Dim Fuse, so they can actually get back Dim Fuse if they want, but Dim Fuse only gets like 1 Democ back. You could get it for protection because you know about Night Assailant. So the idea would be to like get Dim Fuse for follow-up later. But you got Change of Heart as well, and Change of Heart probably is going to be the end of the game. Raigeki will also do it. Yeah, so this is going to be pretty rough. Yep, and they've got a BLS as well, so that's just going to be the end of the game. They've got Reborn on top of that just to extend even further, and they're going to tribute out... I don't think they can actually tribute out that blow... No, they Reborned the Crane, yeah. So they can do that, yep. So they're just going to bring that out, try and pop our set, and, it's over either way because they got Raigeki, but they missed the blowback, so that's kind of nice, and then they will just Raigeki our Night Assailant, and that's going to be the end of the game. So, maybe this Chaos deck isn't the best build. I think that the Night Assailant stuff is a little bit cope, maybe a little bit too slow as well in the face of these Gate decks. So maybe if you build a more aggressive Chaos deck, then you can sort of deal with this deck a little bit better. But I do think that like the explosiveness of this deck, the Gate deck, is just so powerful, and it really does overwhelm a lot of the other decks in this format. Like, this Gate deck will give you like 3 turns max, and if you can't set up something in those turns, then you're basically dead in the water. There are ways to stop the Gate deck, like IO. If you draw IO, then that will stop this deck in its tracks, but I'm pretty sure if people tinker with the Gate deck more, they can sort of fit in more outs to it. Things like Raigeki Break, I think, will be a potential option and do that with in the future. And I just feel like this deck is so strong. And if you're building like an aggressive deck to counter this deck, then it's kind of awkward because this deck is just so much more aggressive than whatever aggressive deck you're going to do. So you're basically playing a worse version of this deck. So granted, it'll be doing different things, but like this deck will just win in aggression war basically. So I don't really think that there's much in this format that can really stand up to this deck, and I think it is probably the best deck in the format, and that's why I'm not really spending too much time in Amsterdam format, because I'm pretty sure this sort of Gate deck is just going to be maybe not tier 0, but definitely top of tier 1 and the deck to beat. But what do you think about this deck down in the comments below? Do you think that I built this Chaos deck wrong and that if built differently, it could actually stand up to the Gate deck? Or do you think the Gate deck is actually tier 0 and, there's just nothing that can really stand up to it? I always look forward to hearing your thoughts down in the comments below. Also, if you want to subscribe to the channel, that would be really appreciated. We're almost at 1,200. We're only about 50 away from 1,200, so that would be really cool to reach soon. And you'll be able to get more retro Yu-Gi-Oh content like this. So definitely do that if you're interested in that. Also, if you want to support me directly, I do have a Patreon link in the description of the video. And if you join the Patreon, you'll be able to get shouted out in these videos. So big shout outs to Bren Donker, Pork Chop Coon, Rincewind, and GMYFS for supporting me on that. It really means a lot to me and motivates me to make even more videos. So I hope that you enjoyed these videos as always. And until next time, I've been Ben from YGO from Zero, and I'm signing off.